It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z. Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at one of the newly reprinted expansions for Neuroshima Hex 3.0 here, and that is Mephisto. Mephisto here is a very unique army, which is represented by a giant worm. The idea is this is massive maggot, right, which has sort of mechanical pieces, and the radiation out there, the nuclear waste and all that has made it mutate. So this is what you're contending with, or of course if you're playing the army, what you are fighting with. I'm not going to be showing you how to play Neuroshima Hex. You can go check out another video for that one. So I'm just going to give you a look at the army, sort of some of the new pieces it introduces, the general concept, things like that, okay? And then I'll come back and I'll tell you what I think of it, and what I think of it in the overall scheme of all the armies available so far. So here we go, let's take a look at it. The Mephisto army is very different from the armies that come in the base game for a few different reasons. Mainly because it's an army that has a single unit in it. It's just one unit, which is also your HQ, Mephisto itself, of course, which is a giant worm which has mutated because of radiation, and it also has machinery that it has incorporated into its being. So it's sort of it's like an android worm, if you want to think of it that way. And this is the only unit you are going to have throughout the game. Now you also get, of course, sort of attachments to Mephisto that are going to pump it up. So let me show you some of those. But that's the main concept behind the whole thing. It comes with some of these tiles, some of the actions tiles we've seen before. So you'll have some castling, which lets you switch two units that are next to each other, two tiles of yours. A move lets you move one of yours, and you can start a fight with some of those. So you have some of those in the game. You also have a couple here that are pretty standard, that are going to give you some extra toughness. So two of those, and then that's it for the standard ones. Everything else is going to be a little bit different. You have other tiles that go on the board, which are normally would have to be attached to a unit to work, like this one, for example, gives you +1 speed, that do not have to be attached to Mephisto to work. So if this is on the board, anywhere it is, Mephisto has a speed of 2, okay? And he can, as you can see here, attack in 3 different ways. He has a shield in the back there, and has a free rotation every time it's your turn. So there's that one there. There are some that are like this that give you +1 attack. Again, anywhere it is on the board. You also have this one that if it's anywhere on the board, Mephisto is going to attack in all 6 directions, not just the 3 indicated on the tile. And then finally, you have this tile here. And you have several of these. And that is going to allow you to trigger some implants. What are implants? Okay, implants are the same thing. They can go anywhere on the board. They have a new symbol around the symbol there in the tile, so a new shape. And these allow you to trigger new actions. For every trigger you have on the board, each one of these you have, then you can trigger one of the implants already played, okay? So let me show you how those work. There's basically, there's a few different ones, but pretty much you have here, you could trigger an extra action to do a castling action. This one is a push from any one of your tiles. When you trigger this, this is not the tile that has to push. Any tile can push. We have this one here that lets you, with any of your tiles, if you trigger this implant, grab some unit 1 space away and hook them and pull them in. So you can, do some damage to them. You have these, which are a quill. There's a right quill and a left quill. And when this comes on the board, you take a token and you put it on a unit out there. Whatever unit you want, you're going to put this on them. And then every time Mephisto attacks, it also attacks that unit. So, we assume that the worm has these sort of tentacles that have come out there and shot quills in this creature, and it's getting attacked is the idea. Because it's supposed to be this massive worm you are contending with. You also have here, you could trigger this and trigger a move. You could trigger this and have a something go underground and come back up. And then finally, you have a few of these which are very interesting. They're blank, as you can see in the center. So you can customize that one with whatever you want to. You can put, for example, on it this net symbol, which means that in every direction that Mephisto shoots, it also nets. If the tile that triggers all the different facings on the big worm is on the board, like this one here, then it's in all 6 directions. There's a net. Or maybe when you put this on the board and you want to incubate instead this ability, which is +2 speed. Or maybe you want this ability, which is an acid, which is sort of like a bomb. It's this whatever space you pick for it to go off and every space around it. And so the whole thing is very malleable to whatever you want to do with it. You have just the single unit that attacks, that's technically true, but with all of these implants, and if you can get the right combination of tokens on the board, you can make the creature very fast, you can make it very volatile, very scary, and so it's a very clever idea which can be hard to grasp. There are a lot of new rules and new concepts in this army. I would say it's definitely not one that you'd want to recommend for new players, right? But it's very clever, and I think finds new design space in the game. So very cool. That is Mephisto. I do also want to point out, if in the back of your head somewhere you're thinking right now, I could just net that creature and really nerf the whole thing. Well, it doesn't work like that. For every net that is hitting this character here, you just slow him down by 1. So you got to be careful. That's not going to work out so much. I myself love nets, but that is not going to be as effective against this big bad boy. So that's basically it. That is the Mephisto army for Neuroshima Hex. So as you can see, this is a very strange army. Definitely one of the more bizarre ones they've come out with so far. Now, I tend to like the ones that have really crazy themes, and this one is one of those. I love this concept of this giant worm out there in the wasteland, and I like investing myself in the theme in this game, because I think if you put in a little bit more, imagination into it, it does reward you with a cooler experience. If you don't put that in, the game can be abstract, it can be abstracted in your imagination, but I think giving yourself that extra push does pay off. And this is a cool one to sort of imagine what this showdown would be like. Your army trekking across the wasteland and being ambushed by this monstrosity that can grow extra limbs and rip your people apart and all this crazy stuff. So I do like that. I like the theme. As far as the gameplay itself, it's clever, very different. It is not necessarily one of my favorite ones because I tend to like the ones that are very creative without a lot of rules overhead, And this one does have quite a few new rules that you sort of need to consider in the game, How you play is going to feel different with this army, and I like that. I like having to learn how to play with it. But there are a lot of things you need to internalize in this one. A lot of little rules you're going to want to memorize or at least be very familiar with, And so I don't dislike it. Like, for example, one of the army's Neo Jungle is one that I'm not a big fan of because there was so much on the board that you had to keep track of, and how does everything affect everything else. So that one I have a hard time playing or playing against even. This is not that bad, but it still gives me a little bit of that feel where you have to make sure that if, that something way across the board over there could affect something that you're focusing on, like laser beam over here on this side of the board. So that's tricky. You got to make sure that you are watching out for that stuff. Other than that, I do like it, and I think it's a very clever concept. It's a really cool army. I definitely would recommend that you check it out. but I would recommend it for completionists at this point. This is, I think, one that you want if you want everything anyway. It's not bad, it's cool, and or if you want one that's really bizarre but playable, then I think you want to check this one out. That is Mephisto for Neuroshima Hex.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.